People want to be heard. And when you're the one who's willing to hear them, they want to work with you. Listening isn't purely passive. You can be the listener and actually be the one leading the direction of the conversation. Leadership at its best is a relationship, not only amongst in space, but in time as well.
Welcome to the True You podcast. My name is Bill Tierney. I'm a compassionate results coach, and I'm here with my partner, Marty Kettlehut. And Marty's an executive and leadership coach. Yeah,
That's correct.
And an author. And in fact, that's what we want to talk a little bit about today is last week we talked about me finding myself as a writer. Marty, you've been a writer and an author for, I think, longer than I have been. I know I've been writing articles for newsletters for a long time, but I haven't been a book writer until, last year, 2 years ago when I first started writing books. And you've been doing it.
When did I first start, really as a writer, not just as a student writing a paper, and I would take it back to when I got a Fulbright scholarship to go abroad and work on my dissertation. And actually, no, the Fulbright scholarship was for when I was a musicologist. This is a scholarship from University of Kiel, Northern Germany. And that was the first time I really sat down as a writer, okay, my task here is to write. And I started thinking, what is it to do that? How does that work? And structuring and finding the right approach and the right words. That was the first time I think became a writer for writing's sake.
Did you have instructions? Did you have a mentor or a teacher that taught you how to do that?
Yeah. I was working on, this is in a university environment. So I had what do they call it in English? In German, it's Dissertationsvater, your dissertation father.
Oh, I see.
But in English, we just say principal professor or something. I can't think of the word right now. But anyway, yes. And then there's a committee too. So I had 3 different professors that were sort of guiding me through that process. Yeah.
How'd that work? The guidance was they would look over your work or you would ask questions. How did you get that feedback from them?
Yeah, I'm anxious to move on to the other because it wasn't a good experience, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
But that way it's supposed to work. Yes, you discuss your writing and you have a conversation, and out of it, you generate a dissertation. I didn't have a very good experience as much as I tried at that with these particular professors.
I see. Do you mind? Can we stay there for just another minute?
Sure.
I'm just saying, great.
Go ahead.
The negative experience, I assume to be that they didn't value the writing the way you wanted it to be valued. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Yeah. And that's impossible. There's something about putting your writing out in front of people that don't appreciate it that is just almost soul crushing. Whereas when the people that find what I'd written as nutritious for their soul, fills me up. And it makes me a better writer. It makes me want to do more of that. Sorry for taking you into that darker place.
Right. It's all right. I mean, I think that it just points to a basic, wanting to be nourished that was not present in them about what I was working on. I wanted to be nourished by them, but it didn't go both ways. And that's part of the org structure of the university and the personalities that it cultivates. They're interested in their own promotion and everything. So that was the problem there.
I see. So you were working on your dissertation, but the first book that you published, and I think you told me you self-published it, correct?
Correct.
Is called Listen Till You Disappear.
That's right. Listen Till You Disappear.
And what was your experience with that? And I want to know what inspired it, what motivated it.
Yeah, well, what motivated it was, I had been coaching for a couple of years, and the main topic, I would say, the central topic of the coaching was developing your business, growing your business. And so this book grew out of what kinds of things have we been discussing? What are the exercises I've been giving? What has been effective for people in growing their business? It turned out to be mostly about being a good listener, right? People want to be heard. And when you're the one who's willing to hear them, they want to work with you. And so your business grows like that, right? And then it's contagious too. Those people that have been listened well, thoroughly by you, they get other people to listen to them about you. And again, the business grows. So that's where the book got generated from. And I took it to all different levels, like listening to your own self-care as well. There are levels of yourself to listen inside your life and in your body and in your own mind for what you need to show up as a good listener. So it's listening not only to the outside, and there are many dimensions of that too. Later in the book, we start listening to your environment and how it supports you or doesn't, et cetera. So it's all about listening. And I met a woman in New York City who I didn't know what she did at first, but she wanted coaching. Gay Wally is her name. She's a beautiful person. And she said, "Oh, this is perfect because I'm an editor. I can edit the book as you write it, and you can coach me in my business." And it was a great partnership. She's a very good editor. I learned a lot from her in the process. And in the meantime, her business grew. She started focusing on coaches and therapists out of our relationship. And that narrowing of her target market made her business grow because she wasn't trying to edit everything that's out there. And she became a specialist in the field, and people talked about her within the field. So it was a really good mutual relationship.
It sounds like it. And I assume that she benefited from reading the book and helping you to edit and taking on the principles that you wrote about.
Yes, she did. Exactly. And she acknowledged that.
I want to just briefly mention that as I listened to you describe the inspiration for the book, I just want to report that when I was first trained in sales, it was on the car lot, on a new and used car lot here in Spokane. And it was really hardcore Zig Ziglar type training, strategies and techniques for trapping people into saying yes and buying today and paying top dollar and all that stuff. And
I made in others' parts.
Yes, it was high conflict. I felt like a snail with salt getting poured on me every time I sat in one of those sales meetings and walked out from the lot and knew I was expected to use those strategies and techniques. And I used that term soul crushing earlier about writing. Well, that's what that experience was like. And I was desperate. I didn't know, with my high school education, I had nothing else that I knew I could exchange for money other than the grocery business. And by then I was so tired of the grocery business. So as time went on, I had all these other sales jobs too. And those lessons that had gotten into me about how to talk to people in such a way that you manipulate them into saying yes to what you're trying to sell, that just kept getting into me and kept getting in the way. And then, of course, I kept failing and struggling because it didn't resonate with me. And then I became a coach, and I tried some of those strategies as a coach, and they didn't work there either. And I finally just threw them away. And when I was introduced to IFS, I decided I'm not going to sell anybody. I'm just going to have conversations with people. And I'm going to do what I do in coaching sessions. I'm going to really listen to what they have to say. So I just want to endorse that my business really caught on when I let go of any sales strategies and techniques and just connected with people and was there present with them in the conversation with them.
I do use this. That's great. Thank you for that. And I do use those sales techniques in a part of my new book on leadership to show that listening isn't purely passive. You can be the listener and be the leader.
Yes.
And most people think it's the other way around. I mean, I was told as a child, listen to what your father said. You're not listening to what your dad said, meaning you're not obeying. And it wasn't that I didn't hear what he said. I didn't want to obey. Right. But you can use some of those sales techniques, listening for their interests, right? This is a sales technique that you can either use to manipulate people into something they don't want, or you could use it for your mutual benefit, actually.
to try to meet needs by listening
Exactly.
to them.
Oh, well, if that's what you're interested in, that's what's important to you. I mean, you ought to go to a different, car dealership because we don't have that kind of car here.
Or we're looking at the wrong car and I've got something else that will fit you better.
Exactly right. That sort of thing, So that, and my point in the leadership book is that listening is not merely passive. You can actually be the one leading the direction of the conversation in the way you listen.
The Art and Science of Heart-Led Leadership is the subtitle to Leadership as Relation by Martin W. Kettlehead P. And here's the book that he's referring to now. This is the most recently published book that Marty's written. Very beautiful cover. Love that cover. Tell me about the cover. What's the design?
Yeah, the marketing people came up with that. I had chosen a painting that I wanted to use. I saw it online and I asked the woman, she actually lives in Nicaragua, and I wrote to her and I said, could we use that painting on the cover of my book? She pondered it for a couple of weeks and then wrote me back and said, yes, good luck with that. And then the marketing people said, no, we have a better design. We're going to use this. And I liked it. I liked it.
Yeah, I like it too.
And so what I like about it is that first of all, it's in a heart shape, but the heart is made up of a whole bunch of people. It's not one heart. It's a multiple heart, right? Many people make up the heart. And then the marketing guy had the cleverness to, you notice the middle of the heart is brighter. It's a lighter color.
I did not notice that.
Brighten that up so it's not the same color as the rest of the cover. And that just makes it outstanding.
Pop, huh?
Yeah.
Nice. So there it is, Leadership as Relation. It looks like it's backwards on my screen. Maybe it's forward when you see it.
The heart that leads is made up of many.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a couple of things marked here in the book. Social contract for teams. I've got one page.
Yes.
I'd like to go through these bullets. We don't have to stay here for very long, but I'd like to. These are a couple of things that really stood out to me when I read the book.
Yeah, I love that work that I discovered by a guy named Keith Ferrazzi. Sounds like a name of an Italian car to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the very important distinctions that he comes up with and steps to follow and techniques to use to basically to promote candor. It's all about fostering candor, safety. You ask for permission for things. You address people in a safe way. So that's so that the group can lead itself, as opposed to one person dictating how the group is going to go. I think it's brilliant work that he does.
So these bullet points are his.
Yes.
From his book, New Social Contract for Teams by Keith Ferrazzi.
Yes.
F-E-R-R-A-Z-Z-I. Do you mind if I just go through these 8 bullet points?
Sure, but before you do, one of the reasons why I was interested in that title of his, New Social Contract, is because I think it might be this chapter or a previous chapter, I'm talking about the Enlightenment social contract, right? That was the concept of the Enlightenment about how to govern, is through social contract. And so I do a reading of that and where that's left us with regard to the concept of money or contracting around money and where that's left us in the modern age.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's really well done. So here are those bullet points by Keith Ferrazzi from A New Social Contract for Teams. Our team does not avoid conflict. I'm just going to read the opening sentence.
Our team does not avoid conflict.
Yeah.
That's a buster right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It calls out the main cause of dysfunction. We're going to all be nice.
There's a lot that gets left out of most traditional leadership coaching. True leadership isn't just about you. It's about your relationships to people, to issues, and to objective reality. Schedule a complimentary discovery session to get at all of it. Go to listeningisthekey.com, click on the pop-up.
We're going to pretend like the conflict doesn't exist, but as soon as you, the person I'm blaming for the conflict, turns his back or leaves the room, I'm going to be talking to my buddy here about how you caused this conflict.
Or if I was raised in the coddling of the American mind that Jonathan Haidt talks about, as soon as there's conflict, I'm quitting. I'm going to look for a softer environment to work in.
Yeah. Yeah. Guilty. That my first 50 years of my life, that's exactly what I did. Yeah. Our team does not have silos. We are committed to a shared mission that acts as a North Star. This is good stuff.
I want to talk about every single one of them. I'll let you finish them though.
Please do. Please pause me and talk about each one of them.
Well,
Let's go back. Our team does not have silos.
That silos one, I've had some people say, well, how could you not work in silos? Don't we need them? Yes, everybody has their own duties, talents, weaknesses, and strengths to bring to the team. Not everybody plays the same position on the team. You need a fullback, you need a halfback, you need a forward, you need goalie. Like, you don't all play the same position, of course. But when I worked with the guy who I interview in chapter 11 about faith and technology and the internet, that was what his team needed most. They were so siloed that it was hampering their growth. The marketing team didn't understand the technology, and the creative team didn't understand management, and they needed to get out of their silos. And so what I asked them to do was start having parties, get together informally, get to know each other. And from that, they naturally started to learn about each other's departments, and that got them to work much more strongly together.
That's great. Yeah. I'm thinking of a client who, I'm not sure exactly what his position is in this very large and growing quickly company, but he was telling me about how sales is the salespeople are trying to earn their bonuses by selling things that they don't have in inventory and that take years to create. So what they're setting up is a real disappointed customer base.
Yeah.
And that's an example, I think, of this.
Exactly.
You wanted to comment about the North Star? We're committed to a shared mission that acts as our North Star.
Well, yeah. One of the basic premises and diagrams in the book is of a triangle. So that when I say leadership is a relation, I don't mean just between a leader and a follower. There's a third element, that North Star, and it is actually doing the leading, right? So you need a leader and a follower, you need leaders and followers, and you need a North Star to have leadership, is what I say.
And I think that you have talked about this in the past, and you pointed to marriage as a good example of this.
Yes, exactly.
So the marriage, the relationship itself, that commitment is that North Star.
Well, what is it? What is the relationship committed to is the North Star. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, not just a commitment that we're going to stay married.
Exactly. That's the thing. We need, what is this relationship about? What is our future? You could put it that way. What is the future we are committed to?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. If you don't have that, then, there are times when one's pulling the other one along, or, there's no agreement about how to make a certain choices. One of my favorite examples of this is when I first started swimming. I don't know why it is, but swimmers always exercise first thing in the morning, like 5 a.m. That's when we swim our laps. I mean, I don't know many swimmers who do their laps in the afternoon. It's always first thing in the morning. Well, it's hard to get up in the dark and cold and head to the pool all by yourself. Even if you're on a team, you need a North Star. Like, okay, let's agree we're going to win the championship this year. Okay, then when I call you at 5 a.m. and say I'm coming to pick you up to go swimming, it's for the championship this year that we're both willing to get up and do this onerous task.
Yes, very nice. I'm also thinking of when I asked Kathy to marry me. I don't know if I've told you this story before, but I was at Landmark Education over in Seattle at the advanced course. And if you've been to the Landmark advanced course, you may remember that the focus of that is to think out beyond yourself personally into the impact that you might have in your community, in your family, in the world. At least that's the way I recall that being the main of the advanced course. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was inspired. I think I've mentioned before, I had a love-hate relationship with Landmark. I loved what happened for me, despite my resistance to to the messaging often. The hate was that I just wanted to be able to be with what I learned and take it with me and not be involved anymore. But that particular day, I was so inspired, and we were on a break. And as many landmarkians know, on breaks, that's when you make your calls. That's when you reach out to people and make connections, that when you recognize that there have been bridges that have been burned and ruptures that need to be repaired and commitments that you're inspired to make. Now's the time to do it.
Just reminds me, a quick parenthetic. I did Landmark so long ago that when I did this, we had to go to the phone bank. We didn't have cell phones at that time. We went to the phone bank to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet you they were full. They were all busy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the scene. Kathy and I have been dating for a year and a half, and she's been married for 23 years. Now she's divorced. I'm out of my second marriage and have been working on myself for 12 years by this point, or maybe even longer. Yeah, 14 years by this point. And in the Landmark Advanced course, I was so inspired that I had the idea that Kathy and I could actually break the chain of dysfunction in her family and in mine, and that we could model that.
Beautiful.
And we could live into it, even if as we recognized our own dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
We both had come from these broken relationships, and yet we're committed that our relationship was going to be functional and whole. So I walk into this area where there's a young woman sitting on a couch reading a book, and nobody else is around. There's a window, and I'm standing looking out the window, and I call Kathy, and it was something like this. Kathy, I just was thinking that you and I are really good together, and I love you, and I know you love me, and we've been waiting because we didn't want to rush into this thing, but I think it's about time for us to get married. I think that if you and I get married, we can model for our families a way to break this chain of dysfunction that you and I have suffered from, and that our kids are suffering from now as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? You want to get married? She said, sure. It's great. We'll set the date when I get home. Oh yeah.
That's wonderful.
So I get off the phone, and this woman on the couch that's been reading the book says, did you just propose to get married? And I said, oh yeah, I did. And she just jumped up from the couch, and I don't know who this woman was. She screams and she gives me a big hug. She says, congratulations. She's all excited.
It's beautiful.
Big sappy romance story.
I love it.
Yeah. Here's the next goal. Our team is not encumbered by hierarchy or control.
So a big theme in the book, and that's one of the reasons why we're working as a team, and there are times when one person is doing the leading. To use a soccer analogy again, like the fullback, it brings the ball forward, right? He's leading at that time. We configure ourselves around where he's taking the ball, get ourselves in position to receive a pass, right? But he's not the leader of the team. Right now the forward's got the ball, and we can reconfigure around him. Everybody has something to contribute. It's a team. The team leads. And yes, we all have different roles, but that's I think a healthier, and you can see how, for example, different leaders of a corporation or of government, they use their cabinet in, either in a better, more thorough way or not. Like Lincoln, for example, he took on, his cabinet consisted, 4 of the 6 people on his cabinet had run against him in the election. Now, isn't that smart?
It is. I remember reading that about him and just being blown away at the wisdom.
See, now that's he was forming a team to really have all of the things, all of the opinions, all of the directions that the country needed in one committee, one cabinet. And then, he led the conversation. And that's very different from somebody, I don't need to name names, who just dictates the way it's all going to go. And everybody has to bow down to that one person. So that's what I mean by leadership as a relation.
I don't think you need to name names. I think everybody knows exactly who you're talking about. Let's go to the next one. Members meet their goals and commitments. What's that?
Idi Amin.
Members meet their goals and commitments. So there's accountability. And by the way, these are the social contract for teams. We are seekers, aware of and open about the areas in which we need to grow, and we proactively coach one another. Members maintain engagement and accept responsibility for elevating one another's energy, celebrating our successes, expressing gratitude. These are great.
It is, yeah. The team that I'm coaching on right now, and their leadership team, going through the Gino Wickman's book called Traction. The EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system is the concept. Once they got their core values down, they said, well, this will be great, because now whenever somebody on the staff exhibits one of these core values, we can say, hey, look at how great that was. That's one of our core values. That dedication to serving that client, no matter what it took, that's one of our core values. So that's the means by which to acknowledge each other and celebrate those things.
Starts with alignment on what those values are, and it's created by the team.
Yes.
In EOS. Yes.
That's right.
I also had studied EOS and supported one of my clients, a chiropractor, in establishing what were their core values. And she got her whole team involved and did it in the old days on a whiteboard. She still has that taped up behind her office door. Every time I go in to see her, I can see that crumbly old 7-8-year-old paper that still has all those core values. That makes me feel proud each time.
I bet. Yeah.
Members are deeply committed to one another. And finally, our team is achieving its full potential as it pursues breakthrough innovation and transformation.
Right?
The book is Leadership as Relation. And let me ask you the same question about this book, Marty, as I asked you about Listen Until You Disappear. What motivated and inspired this book?
I felt all around me a crisis in leadership. I mean, I think, around 2016, I felt like the tremors in our country, and people, starting to shift and wonder, well, what really should leadership look like? And there were, models, of some people thought, well, there shouldn't really be any leadership, basically. We got to take care. We need, we need an army to protect us from other nations or certain things, like people to fix the sewer system. But otherwise, it's as little governance as possible, And then there are other people who are saying, no, we need like a really, like one person to really take charge here. Right, and show us the way, and we all get behind that one person. And then other people like, oh no, democracy, is the answer, and we just need to do more democracy. And so I started to look at, well, where did these ideas come from, and what is best? And it took me to a whole bunch of literature that was written in the middle of the 20th century. Came from the University of Ohio and the University of Michigan. There was a bunch of studies done, and they did tests and small group discussions, and they went about it scientifically, and they wrote a bunch of articles, and I read those. And so my first thing was I recognized, like, okay, there are times when, we do need somebody, one person, to say which way we're going to go. There are times when that's true. And there are other times when, like, for example, when the quarterback calls the play, we don't have a discussion about it. He just says, we're doing this, and they do it, right? And then there are other times when it's wide open, like everybody's equal, and we're just brainstorming. Like, every idea is equally valid. We'll put them all on the whiteboard, right? So there are times when the laissez-faire, like, just let it be, let it happen, let them do what they need, is most appropriate. And then there are other times when we need to take a vote, and see what the majority thinks. So that was the first thing that I noticed, is that instead of choosing one or the other, we needed to be flexible. So I recognized it depends on that North Star again in any given moment. right? So that, and then I got to thinking about, what does the fact that it changes, what does that mean, right? From time to time, the way things, leadership itself needs to be flexible in how it's structured. What does that mean, right? And that other people that are involved. And so I got to see that leadership at its best is a relationship, not only amongst in space but in time as well. And so yeah, it came out of my just really reflecting on what's going on in this country.
And as you answered my question, I remembered, I recognized much of what you just talked about. You wrote about at length in the book, these different approaches and how one is needed at one time and another approach might be needed at another time.
Yeah. The guy that I was dating at the time that I wrote it, he thought that was the most important part of the whole book. Like, I never thought that it could be all of them.
Yeah. It's a great read, and I'm not the only one that thinks so. In fact, before we hit record today, you were telling me about having a webinar where you met someone who had been reading your articles. Mm-hmm. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, both of these guys that I was mentioning to you, they're responding to a series of articles that I've been writing on coaching for the future. I'm really proud of them. I'm really, there's nothing hackneyed about what I'm saying coaching for the future needs to be. I'm really looking deeply and boldly at what, has become passé and not really making a difference anymore, and what coaching for a better future needs to look like. And so I take a certain responsibility for my position in society, for our position as coaches in society. Who do we need to be for the future of our world? That's what this series is about. And the one guy, I met him at a conference where I gave a talk on coaching for accountability in coaching for the future. So one of Ferrazzi's points there, we hold each other accountable, that you pointed to. I gave a talk at this conference. It was a webinar that somebody else organized, but I was invited to speak at, about the analog element, because most of the talks at the conference were on digital programs to hold each other accountable, using AI or just, like Slack channels, things like this. And I have experience with all of those and others. And what I find is that there's an analog element that needs to be part of the accountability for it to stick. And that was what my talk was about. And
by analog, you mean person to person?
Not necessarily. I mean, sometimes you can. What I mean is a continuity. There needs to be a bridge between the intention to do something and be accountable to it and the action that gets it done. There needs to be a continuity. So a light switch goes on or off. It's digital, on or off. But a dimmer is a continuity between those points, right? It holds or bridges, right, the space between. And that's what we need to hold someone accountable. You don't just say, okay, it's your job to do this, go do it. And then 3 days later, did it get done or not? Like, that's not holding somebody accountable.
There's a form of it.
I think that's missing accountability. That's a digital, and it's an on or off thing.
I see.
And what accountability is the continuity that gets you from the intention to the action. Sparked this guy, he went boom, bang, bing, snap, crackle, pop, and it set up a bunch of ideas. And so we started talking.
Oh, cool. And he is the one that you heard the phrase "be more human" from first time.
That's right. He's just finished a couple of pieces of book and a dissertation of a different sort than the one that I wrote, but much, how do I say, less philosophical, more hands-on, doable piece on leadership. And And so he comes to the same conclusion, though, basically, be more human. Like, human isn't just turning, somebody, like dumping a project on somebody and saying, you got to get it done by May 5th or else. That's not holding anybody accountable. So he was saying we need to be more human in our leadership as well. So we had a similar theme.
And then you hooked up with someone else on LinkedIn who was also reading the same series. Is that right?
Yes. He liked a couple of things that I wrote. It started out, I was talking about leadership for coaching for the future needs to have a future-oriented focus, and in a deeper way than we usually talk about it. But that North Star is back to the North Star. And I there was a phrase I used. I said I compared it to, there are short-term things, like profits this quarter that you could compare to, like, the way we chop down a bunch of wood early for bulk purposes, like to make the kind of paper that they print, dirty novels on, right? That kind of paper, or toilet paper, really. But then there's for structural, like for telephone poles and the wood to build, the structure of a building, you need to let the forest grow longer. You need to have a longer term perspective and let it grow. And I was saying that's similar in coaching. We can't just be focused on the immediate gratification. How does that immediate gratification of making $1 million next quarter, how does that fit into the overall life of this company and of these people? Right? Is that, do we just do whatever we have to meet that immediate goal? Or is there a longer term perspective that's going to influence, how we live in the present? And I use that harvesting wood analogy, and he liked that.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's very good. We've just got a few minutes left, Marty, and I want to at least mention that you're currently writing your third book that you intend to publish, and it's called Beauty. Tell me how that experience is going and what's inspiring that.
I like to think it's my fourth because I include my dissertation as a book.
Okay.
It is.
Your fourth.
But in the public, well, it's actually in the Library of Congress, but yes, right.
What is the name of your dissertation?
It's a long thing. Basically, it's called the short title. Then after the colon, there's a long thing. But the short title is The Polar Sense.
The polar sense?
Polar sense. Yeah, like opposites.
Yeah, yeah.
And when is that appropriate to think in terms of opposites, and when is it not really in logic? Right. So it's about logic. But anyway, yeah, the book I'm writing now is on beauty. And almost immediately when I mentioned that, I would say 8 out of 10 people, I guess that's 4 out of 5 people, say to me, "Oh, isn't it in the eye of the beholder? Isn't that something subjective?" And I want to show that there would be no beauty if it were just subjective. That the whole concept falls apart if it's just subjective. That beauty arises in a relationship as well with the object. That there are schools of thought that say the opposite. They say, "Oh no, there is an objective. You can tell certain things are beautiful objectively and others are not." And that's another. So these two schools are at odds with each other. Mm-hmm. I'm saying no. There's something that happens, I would say, of a spiritual nature. Like it's not in either the body of the subject or in the body of the object. It happens in the relationship between them that beauty arises.
Let me tell you how I'm relating to what you're saying right now, if I could. In 1970, I was 15 years old, and my family moved from Kansas City, Kansas, to Great Falls, Montana. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, the tallest hill I'd ever seen in my life was a haystack. Kansas is so flat. There are some little foothills around Missouri, around St. Joseph and that area, but it's just as flat as far as you can see. So flying into Great Falls we flew over these amazing Rocky Mountains, snow-covered Rocky Mountains in June.
Mm-hmm.
And we landed in the airport in Great Falls. There was snow on the ground June 6th, I want to say 1970, a little inch or two of snow on the ground. And it was just like we had flown into a completely new, no sooner than we got into town did we rent a car and begin to drive outside of Great Falls into the foothills and into the mountains. And we started seeing deer and elk. It's just incredible wildlife and beauty and trees and gorgeous. And we all agreed this is beautiful. It was 1970. I lived in Montana until right around 1983 and then moved other areas of the Pacific Northwest. Now let's go fast forward to right around 1999. I had been away from Montana and had just been living in the city here in Spokane. And there's, I don't have to go very far to see mountains, but it's mountains. The contrast being when I went from Kansas to Montana, mountains. Oh my God, just awe-inspiring beauty. Now I'm in Spokane, and someone that lives in Kansas could come to Spokane and say the same thing. Oh, this is awe-inspiring beauty. To me, it's ho-hum. But in 1999, I made a trip back to Montana for the first time in about, I want to say 7 to 8 years. And my life had changed. I was freshly divorced. I was going back to Montana to see people whose the relationships I just burned during the marriage, going back to make repairs. And my mind is just pretty much preoccupied. And I'm driving through the panhandle of Idaho into Montana, and I come around a bend, and I am literally awestruck at the beauty of what I'd seen. And I had driven by that 100 times before, but something about that day, those circumstances, that context,
Your frame of mind
struck me. And I went back later. I took my wife several years later back to say, I got to show you this spot. And we drove, and she said, oh yeah, it's pretty. And I thought, yeah, it is pretty, isn't it? But it wasn't awe. It wasn't the beauty that had struck me that day in that way.
So there's a relation between the objective and the subjective. One other thing I do want to say that I'm exploring in the book, not just that it's a relation, but also that it's the organizing relation of creation. And I mean God's creation as well as our creations. Like we created this conversation in a way, I say ultimately, of making it a beautiful thing. And that, like when a politician makes an argument for his policy, ultimately it's not just because he thinks it's true, but it's beautiful. This would make for a beautiful world. When you make a choice about, whether to be, I'm thinking of an ethical, like the whistleblower in your company, you do it not because it's easy or it feels good, but because it's the beautiful thing to do. So I'm looking also at beauty as sort of like the organizing principle of creation.
Wow.
And what if we could get behind making this a more beautiful world? Because that's how God created it. That's the secondary thesis.
Let's end on that beautiful note.
Thank you.
Marty, thanks for the conversation.
You're welcome.
Listener, thanks for listening. Well, until next time. We appreciate who you are, that you would be listening to this podcast, and want to acknowledge all those parts of you that yearn for the experience of the true you.
If you like this episode, click like, share it with others, and be sure to subscribe. Listen again next week for the newest episode.
Check show notes for a transcript and a link to resources, including a link to let us know if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for listening and going on this journey with us back to the true you.